Welcome to AO On Air. This is a podcast from ActiveOps, allowing us to present you topics ranging from operations management, leadership, technology, and new innovations. Check out all our episodes on YouTube channel AOTV or with your favorite podcast platforms such as Apple or Spotify. Now let's begin.
Hello and welcome to AO On Air. My name's Michael Cups. I'll be your host today. And we've got an exciting guest, someone that I was able to meet in London in October because she was the keynote speaker at our Capacity 22 event. And she did a wonderful job there. So I rushed to find her and ask her if she would participate in our podcast. And she gracefully said yes. So it's Dr. Mona Ashok, who is with the University of Reading. I'll let her introduce herself. But today's topic is going to be artificial intelligence, or AI. We're going to talk about the risks, the opportunities, the challenges, the misperceptions, et cetera, as it relates to operations and financial services. So welcome very much. Good to see you again.
Thank you, Michael, and really honored to be on your podcast. A brief introduction about myself. I come from the industry. I spent about 20 years as a chartered accountant and then working for two global IT services firms. I've worked all the way from the east coast of the globe, from Asia, from Japan, Australia, spent a lot of time in India where I grew up, then in the UK and North Americas where I was specifically based in the US. A lot of my academic career has built upon what I've done in my professional career. I am an associate professor of digital transformation, so it builds on my industry experience in the IT services industry. And I'm really passionate about the role that digital technology and transformation plays in enabling change. So for me, digital technologies should not be the end goal, but it should be a mechanism for organizations to go from A to B and hopefully in the process, improve efficiencies, improve the bottom line of the organizations, and should allow the employees, the partners, the key stakeholders to focus on what is really, really important for the organization to exist. So that's me in a nutshell.
Very good. Well, it's nice for our audience to meet you, and it's good to hear that. And I digital transformation. You don't open up a magazine about banking or tech or insurance or any of that without seeing digital transformation being all over the topic. So so you're in a very hot space there. So well, let's start maybe. Let's talk about a couple of useful applications. I thought the presentation you mentioned in London, you've mentioned public sector and sports were two examples you used. Since everybody participates in, we're all part of the public, and some of us like sports, especially when a World Cup is ongoing. Maybe could you give us a few examples of AI and practical use in those areas?
Yeah. So if you take sports and you mentioned the World Cup, we haven't seen a single match at the World Cup without VAR technology, either confirming the referee's decision or enabling the referee to take a decision or to rule the decision originally taken by the referee. Now, it plays a fundamental role in the way the sports industry works. Just before the Football World Cup was the T20 Cricket World Cup. As I said, I've come from India, and it's a religion in Indian families. So you can imagine, sitting in front of the television and everybody arguing about, was it hitting the stumps? Was it a six? What is a four? So the entire industry is transformed since the first use of artificial intelligence in Gary Kasparov's match against IBM's Deep Blue 1996. And since then, the sports industry and the market share of the sports industry has astronomically grown in size, be it Ivy League universities in the US who are spending, astounding amount of money and funds to ensure that they are able to support their sporting elites, maximize their capacity, and that shows that this is playing a fundamental role in transforming what used to be a more active part of human life. It's now engrossed within technology that is all around the industry. Now, if we look at public sector, and I've done a lot of research with my co-authors recently around the application of AI technology within government sector. We have looked at the application and adoption and diffusion of AI, specifically right now with my PhD student in Canadian public sector. And through the recent literature review papers and the case studies that we have synthesized and the primary data that we collected from Canada, we are increasingly seeing that organizations within public sector are acknowledging that there is more and more acceptance of certain type of digital technologies, be it chatbots, be it natural language processing, which is enabling them to streamline some of their customer-facing offerings and services, and it frees up staff time and effort to deal with some of the more complex issues that can't be dealt specifically by AI or machines. So that I see as an increasing focus within public sector as well as private sector. And some case examples, and I know when I did the research and the keynote speech at ActiveOps, interesting case studies from across the globe, be it Azerbaijan, introducing digital signature, wherein every citizen is linked up through the artificial intelligence provided by the government, and that digital signature then allows them to do several services. Or be it in Korea, wherein they provide, jobs and adverts, etc., matching your profile using artificial intelligence. If you look at, governments around the world are using artificial intelligence when you apply for a passport, your photograph is screened based on algorithms, etc., and that has freed up time that used to, take an individual to look at a photograph, accept it, reject it, and used to, we did that in the pre-pandemic period using manual submission of actual documents. Now it can be done online. It's reduced the time that it takes to process applications. And therefore, we are seeing this across the globe, that adoption of artificial intelligence has increased. But in the public sector, as I said, there is a tendency to accept some parts of the advanced data analytics toolkit rather than all of them. But that is a promising sign.
Yeah, excellent. And I want to get back to the sports analogy a little bit later in a question that I want to ask. But the latter stuff you were talking about, recognition of documents and people and things like that, those probably have applications. And my next question, which is, most of our listeners and people that tune into this podcast are working in financial services, whether they be large banks, insurance companies, et cetera. So obviously you presented a couple of slides that caught my interest. You had one that was called back office, middle office, and front office, and you had some application areas. And I couldn't ask you to go through all of those, but just if you think about financial services, where is AI making the most impact, and what do you any thoughts or comments there?
So I'm just going to refer my notes just for the numbers because I don't want to get them wrong. But both the OECD research and the Business Insider Intelligence research 2021 and 2022 respectively showed that the banking financial services industry definitely was adopting artificial intelligence across the board. So be it back office, middle office, and the front office. Bulk of the investment so far in the industry has gone into the middle office, wherein the most advanced application has been in risk and risk management and anti-fraud. So that's where we've seen the most amount of investment, the most maturity in terms of the middle office. That is then followed by the front office, which is customer facing, and the conversational banking, which could be chatbots, natural language processing, etc. As I said, is also used in public sector a lot. We see increased use and adoption of that in the banking financial institutions. The least amount of investment has happened in the back office, wherein the credit underwriting has been most mature, but what has been lagging is providing smart contracts. So trying to customize what you provide to the customers has been the least amount of investment and maturity in terms of the banking industry. In terms of other numbers or other areas that we found similar research in, I also cited a Barclays hedge fund research 2018, and I found something really startling there. Only 27% of the respondents to the survey conducted by Barclays said that they used artificial intelligence to make trading related decisions. So what we are seeing from that research is that AI is not taking over the work from the core traders. Yeah. It's enabling them to take a decision, but it's not overtaking these traders, basic interaction with, taking these key critical decisions. But what we did find is that I'm just looking up, 2/3 of the respondents said that they actually used artificial intelligence to generate new ideas. So it's very interesting that they're using artificial intelligence as a launch pad for innovation.
Yeah.
And they are able to then, and 58% said that they use it to create portfolios, to create offerings, which then they are selling to their current and new customers. And that is an interesting find, that they're actually using artificial intelligence not for mundane and ongoing work, but as a launch pad for something new. So does that answer your question, Michael?
It sure does, and it gives us a wide perspective of where it's going. The interesting thing for active ops in our customer base, as you know, is we tend to work in the back office operational side, and like you said, they're kind of, I don't want to call them laggards, but they're slower adopting AI in those. Where our first foray, and I think you've probably been briefed on it or even helped us with some of the thoughts around it, is forecasting and planning, which is making sure you have the right amount of people for the right amount of work at the right time and things like that. Is that do you see that? Are we out there at the forefront, or is that a common use case?
No, I think that's it's more on the forefront of the industry. Again, for your listeners who don't probably know that, but the Henley Business School, where I'm based at, has a knowledge transfer partnership with ActiveOps, wherein we have Innovate UK, government funding, UKRI funding, to work on a project which basically uses machine learning, artificial intelligence, enables us to use the data that ActiveOps has, obviously working with its customers, to enable us to run several projects. One of the projects that we are looking at is, productivity, utilization, optimum team sizes. We are also looking at the employees who are leaving their organizations, and what factors might lead to that, an employee leave, etc. So this is definitely at the forefront of the industry, because you are not just looking at the mundane tasks of whether a transaction should be accepted or rejected, or trying to track fraud, the risk management, etc. You are now going to the next step, which is trying to help organizations optimize how they are what is the right word? How they plan their teams. Yeah. How do they plan their skill profiles? How do they assign, how much time should be assigned to specific tasks based on the individual's skills at the entry level, how long they've been doing it, etc. And that then allows the organization to identify a good mix of team, senior colleagues, more experienced, more mature individuals who bring in a lot of experience with probably members who are, recently trained, recently out of universities, who bring in slightly different skills. So you are now able to then bring them together and identify what is the right mix. And depending on the task that team performs, then they are able to, come up with what works optimally. You're able to then help data help make decisions around, we need to spend time on training, we need to spend time on enabling individuals take time off, because that's a critical part of individuals being able to recharge their batteries, etc. So that is an increasing area of value add, because your customers are now able to take decisions based on how they are how they have grouped their individual teams, what is their vision, and how that then allows them to change their strategy towards team building, etc.
That's awesome, and thank you for clarifying that. That laid it out very, very directly. I think that the direction that's headed and the benefits to the customers too. You were talking about employee engagement there with identifying burnout factors and things like that. But It's interesting because even I was flying home from Louisville, Kentucky yesterday, and in the airport I was reading, just scanning news sites, and there's still, at least in the U.S., I don't know about UK, where AI is going to take your job, right? Is the kind of the journalist myth, if you will, but in fact, it's really about it's engaging the employees and assisting the employees. Like just your sports example, I wanted to get back to that. They're not replacing the umpires; it's just helping them do their job better, right?
Yeah, and I think and I'll give the answer in two buckets. The first bucket is a 2018 research which spoke to Russian bank executive, and he said that as soon as they implemented artificial intelligence, two-thirds of their employees were made redundant, and they were basically middle management and lower management level. Now, and I think that kind of rings a bell across the globe, as well as different industries, that people are going to lose their job. What is the other side of the coin, or the second half of my argument, is an open text research which looked at how exactly AI benefits or will benefit the banking and financial sector, and amongst their top 5 or 6 benefits, the last one is staff retention. Although it is 20% of the respondents said that staff retention would be the potential benefit, and about 70 or 75% said that it would be fraud management, risk management, etc., were much higher in terms of potential benefits as compared to staff retention. But it is interesting that within the industry there is an acceptance that artificial intelligence will enable organizations to retain their key resource, which is their employees. The implementation of AI is not fundamentally to lay off staff. It is to enable data-driven decisions. It is to take away the mundane tasks from human beings, and to use artificial intelligence and machines to do those tasks, to free up the time available to employees. Now, if I give an example from academia, and we all have to do some administrative roles. Some of them are really, really mundane. And when we look at the number of students we have, and the number of requests that we get, which are rather mundane and could be easily trained into an artificial intelligence, could save a lot of time. And we could train the algorithm to process what probably would be about 98% of the mundane cases that can be easily, they can look at the evidence. Does it cover 2 or 3 types of evidence that we have to support, for example, a very short extension to submission of, an essay or an assignment. And that could be easily done. And anything that doesn't fit within the algorithm, those special cases can then be sent back for an individual to look at. So that would be what I say is better use of our time, wherein we can train the system to take certain certain decisions based on parameters that we have set up.
Yep.
That does not mean that I am redundant. It means that I'm now available to do tasks which are more important to my end customer, which is spend more time with my students, do more research, engage with the industry, etc. So I think that approach taken both by employees and organizations will help.
Yeah.
However, this doesn't come automatically. So, it's easy to say, yes, we've implemented AI in this particular area. This is what it's going to do. This will, free up so much time. But you do have to then enable your employees to be trained to read the output from the algorithm, to build the scenarios that go into the algorithm, because it is garbage in, garbage out. So if you don't train the algorithm appropriately, if you don't input the data appropriately, if the data that is input is biased because it is specifically looking at a customer base, it is not looking at all your markets, then the decisions that it comes out of that algorithm are also biased. Yeah. So therefore, using staff time to improve the algorithm, come up with those scenarios, look at the risk factors, identify wherein you should intervene. That would be better use of human capability. So, rather than losing the tacit knowledge within the employees, you can use them to train the algorithm. And the algorithm obviously is faster, makes decisions, frees up time, etc. So I hope I answered the question.
You did, and I like the way where you ended there. You as the employees are going to get an input into how the intelligence evolves as well. And I think I think a lot of people would like to get mundane tasks taken off, and then they can spend more time upskilling and finding new things to do as well, which is interesting. So you touched on something there that maybe brings up, you brought up in London on your keynote about ethical AI. And I would venture to say not many people know much about what that means. Maybe you could share with us what it is and how do people pay attention?
Yeah, so 2019, I was invited to create new material for a master's program here at the university. And the topic was digital ethics. Which is interesting because there wasn't much written, and we didn't have any colleague who actually taught digital ethics as a module on any course rather than a master's course. And that piqued my interest, saying, I need to read more about it. And so I created the material, and then I went to a conference in Venice, 2019. And since then have published a literature review paper on digital ethics, and that then has gone on in other sectors. I worked with two very senior coaches on looking at what are the ethical considerations of digital coaching. And that book chapter has been accepted and due to be released early next year. What is digital ethics is to look at the ethical considerations of engaging with a machine which is making decisions, and that engagement could be machine to machine, it could be human to machine, but it is the fact that you need to look at and I kind of touched upon it previously when I said the algorithm is as good as what data goes in. The algorithm is as good as the scenarios that you feed in. The algorithm, the results from the algorithm are based on if the entry point is biased, then the results are biased. Yeah. So if I give an example, so I mentioned passport and automatic facial recognition. It is, across the globe, quite well acknowledged that the algorithms tend to have more false negatives. So it does not recognize faces of people with color, and females are less likely to get a positive when you submit an application with your photograph. Now, that is because historically the data being fed into the system was more white male. So, the population data that has gone in is a particular spectrum of the data. And therefore, when you process the data, it throws up a negative. So, I applied for renewal of my passport, and it kept rejecting my son's photograph. It accepted my husband's photograph, and there was nothing wrong. And we were able to override the false negative on the system and explain why we thought it met the requirements, and it was then accepted, and we got our passports with those photographs. So that is the ethical consideration. The privacy issues. Have the, who owns the IP for the data? And now let's take an example of wearables. You are generating a lot of information, be it your heartbeat, be it, your pressure, how many steps you've taken, etc., etc. You are leaving a digital trail. That data is then being used without consent, without informed consent by the manufacturer, by the app owners, in order to then sell that data to a third party who may contact you saying, you know what, you tend to do these type of activities. Do you want to buy this? So that is the other spectrum wherein, the privacy of data. Who owns the data? Have you taken consent? Where is the data being saved? So, the laws governed in specific geographies are different. Is that information being sold legally, illegally? And we've seen several, large lawsuits and penalties being given out to tech companies that have either used the data or the data has been breached. So there is a lot of other considerations when you embed digital, be it AI, etc. So, the lovely work that ActiveOps is doing is to try and set up a board around the ethical considerations of using AI within the organization. And that shows the seriousness of, how are we using data? Where is the data coming from? Do we have informed consent from the person who's generating the data? And how are organizations using that information to make decisions? If it's all right, I can give another example.
Please do.
I met with a very large tech company some years back, and using artificial intelligence, they were able to predict that the demographic details of a female employee who went on maternity would not come back to work, or an employee with specific demographic characteristics would take longer to come back to work. Now, using that data to support the employee is different to using that data to basically say, this demographic details, this individual is not likely to come back, and therefore why bother giving them important roles or promotions or all of that. That use of data and intelligence is inappropriate. So there is a lot of focus in digital ethics is how is that data being used, where is it being used. Also, when we look at generic data analytics about a task should take so much time if you are new to the industry, or you should take so much time if you have a college degree, should take so much time if you have 10 years of experience, etc. But what if there are specific circumstances that are different to the individual? So an individual might have disabilities. And therefore, does the data then allow you to then adjust that to say, these circumstances are different and you need to revise the set of parameters to enable that employee not to feel as if they are never meeting their objectives. They are underperforming. They're not underperforming. They have special characteristics which the data has not been fed into, and therefore you do not have a baseline for it. So I think those are some of the examples of why digital ethics is important.
Yeah, very good. And great examples. Thank you for that. So we're about out of time. So I wanted to ask you if you mentioned several papers that you've written and things like that. If someone wanted to pick up the conversation with you directly, do they find you on LinkedIn? Go to the University of Reading website? What's the best way?
LinkedIn and the university email ID. So, Michael, if you want, I can drop a note to you. You can add it to the YouTube channel, and I'm happy for them to connect on LinkedIn or email.
Okay, excellent. And is there anything that I know we covered it quickly, but any risk, rewards, opportunities? We could go on for days.
The risks and the opportunities are both very high. The risks come from the fact that it needs a top-down approach. It needs an engagement. It needs an investment. It is a longitudinal view rather than let's do it for this quarter and then forget about it. You need to have partners that you trust, and in order to make a real impact, it has to impact the entire supply chain, the whole ecosystem. The rewards are equally, huge because, as we discussed, you can free up your employee time to do work that is valuable to your end customers. Work that they are able to then create new offerings. They are able to focus on new markets. They're able to focus on multitasking, on upskilling, etc. So the rewards are equally huge. But you can't get it wrong. There are considerations around ethics, around the resilience of your approach, the agility of your approach, whom are you partnering with, etc. And the investment is required is huge. So I would say both are important, but not doing it is not an option in any industry going forward.
Yeah, well, thank you for all the insight. We really appreciate it. I want to ask you, once we get our smart planning product out in the market and some of our customers, maybe you can come back and give us some insights on how
absolutely.
Well
and we are sending out a proposal to be presenting at a event co-hosted by the University of Oxford, University of Reading, and a couple of other universities here in the UK, wherein we are trying to showcase the impact through industry and academia engagement. So more on it. If we get selected, then Bhavesh and I will be presenting in March. So hopefully we get accepted, and then we will speak about that later on.
That sounds great. That's a good way to put a target out there to get back together. So thank you very much for joining us today. Great insight, great information. I feel privileged because I got to see you on stage as a keynote and get to spend a little time with you here. So wonderful for your participation. For those watching and listening, please do check out our other podcast on AOTV on the YouTube channel. You can also find information about ActiveOps at activeops.com. And as always, we'll be sending out a new version of the podcast soon. Thank you very much.